Alright everyone, I put together this screen recording to kind of show you how to do the math. So starting with this one, we first take the pounds and convert it to kilograms. So 18 pounds and then 2.2 pounds for every kig. The pounds cancel and you're left with your kigs, so 8.2 kigs. So number one is asking us how much metronidazole to give the dog. So the metronidazole dose is 22 milligrams per kig. And we know that the animal is 8.2 kigs. So we're going to multiply by 22 mgs per kig, and your kigs will cancel. And you're going to be left with giving 180 mgs per dose. And your doses every 12 hours. So in one day, you're going to be giving 2 doses, 24 hours in a day, once every 12 hours, you get it. And then you're doing that for 10 days. So the pills come in either the 250 milligram one or the 500 milligram tablets. So you have to make a choice. And so half of the 250 is going to be 125, which gets us a little bit close. But then if you do 0.75 of the tablet, so if you cut it in half, give the half, and then cut the other half in half again and give half of that. Sorry, it's kind of confusing. But basically 0.75 of a tablet will give you 187.5 milligrams, sorry. And it's basically around the dose that we need to give the animal. So it's right around 180 milligrams. So you give that. So you're going to be needing 0.75 tablets per dose. And then, so per day, you want to multiply that by 2 to get 1.5 tablets. So 1.5 tablets each day. And then I believe the question was how many tablets for a 10-day course. So you're going to give, I think my writing will catch up here, but you're going to be giving 1.5 tablets a day, and then times 10 days, that's 15 tablets that you're going to want to prescribe. Okay, so now in part 2 of this question, we want to give the animal fenbendazole at 50 milligrams per kg every 24 hours for 5 days. It's the same animal as part 1, so we figured that out last time. It weighed 8.2 kgs. And the dose for this drug is 50 milligrams per kg. So we'll set that up here. You have your 8.2 kilograms. And then you're going to multiply this by the dose, which is 50 mgs on top and 1 kg on the bottom. Your kgs will cancel, leaving you with 409 milligrams. Okay, so I'm going to kind of walk you through what the 10% liquid suspension, what the heck does this mean? Because I know I was kind of confused for a while, and I just want to kind of show where that comes from, and it might help in the future for people to understand that it's not just like, oh, just add a 0. So 10% means that you have 10 grams per 100 milliliter, 10 out of 100. So basically, you're going to convert that top grams into milligrams. So in 10 grams, there's 10,000 milligrams. So now you're left with 10,000 milligrams for every 100 milliliters. And I'll just wait for the writing to catch up with what I'm saying here. Okay, so now what you're going to see is that you have your 10,000 milligrams for every 100 milliliters. And you'll see that the zeros cancel. So now you're left with 100 milligrams for every milliliter. So basically 10% means 100 milligrams per 1 milliliter, and that's where that comes from. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we know that we're going to be giving the animal 409 milligrams, and in every 1 milliliter there's 100 milligrams. So your milligrams are going to cancel out with each other. Your milligrams cancel, and then you're left with 409 milliliters for one dose. And it says you're giving one dose each day. So you just take this milliliters that you got and multiply by 5. So around 4.1 milliliters, 5 days gives you 20.5 milliliters that you need to send home. Okay, so now in question 2 we have Fleckles. I'm going to be using the 5.2 pounds that's in the actual question. So 5.2 pounds times 1 kilogram has 2.2 pounds in it. Your pounds cancel and you're left with 2.3 kgs. Your daily maintenance dose of fluids is 60 milliliters per kg per day. And then you will take your weight, which is 2.3 kgs, times 60 milliliters on top over kgs per day. And your kgs are going to cancel, and you're going to be left with 142 mils per day. And then part 2 is, he developed diarrhea, so now we want to start him on 1.5 times the maintenance, or 90 mils per day. So you could do his weight times the 90, or since we already know our maintenance dose is 142, I just went ahead and multiplied that by 1.5. So 142 times 1.5 will give us our new mils per day in the emergency case. So that will give you 213 mils per day. And then we want to know how many mils per hour, so 213 mils per day, and then multiply in 1 day. There is 24 hours. Your days will cancel, and you'll be left with mils per hour, which gives you around 8.86 mils per hour, and you round that to about 9 mils per hour. Okay, so then part 3 says that you want to set a drip rate, and it says that the drip is set to 15 drips per milliliter, and we know that he's already getting 9 milliliters per hour, so we just need to get this into the drips per hour unit. So we start with our 9 milliliters per hour, and we multiply this by 15 drips per 1 milliliter. And so your milliliters will cancel, and that will leave you with 135 drips per hour. So now we want to get this in 2 minutes. So 135 drips per 1 hour, and then in 1 hour there's 60 minutes, and your hours will cancel, and you'll be left with about 2.25 drips per minute. And so basically you can just say that, okay, I'm giving around 2 drips a minute, or about 1 drip every 30 seconds. Okay, so now we're on to question 3, who is hangry, and he is a 2-year-old lab, 88 pounds. So again, we're just going to start with 88 pounds, get it into kigs, and you'll be left with 40 kilograms. And now you want to know how many shock dose fluids. So what I did was I took the kigs and I multiplied it by the 90 mils, but we only want to use 1/4 of this total one. So you get 3,600 mils, but we only want 1/4. So 3,600 times, you could do times 0.5 or just divided by 4. And you'll be left with 900 milliliters over a course of 30 minutes. So how many mils is that per minute? So 90 milliliters in 30 minutes, you just divide, and you're left with 30 mils per minute. And now in part 2, you're going to be giving metoclopramide to help his stomach empty better. The dose is 0.3 mg per kg IV, and then the concentration is 5 milligrams per milliliter. So again, you want to start with 40 kgs. You're going to multiply by the dose, so 0.3 mg per kg. Your kgs will cancel, and you'll be left with 12 mgs. And then you're going to see how many milliliters that is, so you get your 12 mgs, and then multiply by the concentration, so 1 milliliter, 5 mgs per milliliter, and then you'll be left with 2.4 mils IV that you're going to be giving. Okay, and then part 3 is a little bit challenging, but basically you want to be giving a continuous rate of infusion of this metoclopramide at 2 mgs per kg per day. You're currently running the fluids at 60 mils per kg per day, but we essentially, in the question, want to give 2 times this. So it'll be getting basically 120 mils per kg per day, but let's just leave it at 60 mils until our math shows up for us. So basically we want to know in 1 liter bag of fluids, how many milliliters of drugs should we add? And then 1 liter bag is 1,000 milliliters. Okay, so we start with our weight, which is 40 kilograms, and we multiply this by 60 mils per kg per day. And we want to do 2 times this, so that's why I wrote the times 2. And that'll give us 4,800 mils per day. So we'll hang on to that amount for a second, but now we want to know how much metoclopramide per day should I be giving. So I start with the weight of the animal, which is 40 kilograms, and then multiply by the dose, which is 2 mg per kg. And so you learned that you will be giving this animal 80 mgs of metoclopramide each day. So how do we get how much drug we know and how much liquid we know to how many milliliters in that bag? So we set up a cross multiply and divide with the amount of drug that we know we're giving per day on top, the amount of fluids we know we're giving on the bottom, and then we're left with on the top, on the other side, we don't know how many mils we're going to be giving, but we do know how many mils are in each bag. So we cross multiply and divide, or if you're me and can't spell cross multiple, and divide. So on one side you have 80 times 1,000 equals the 4800x, and we're solving for x. That way we're basically learning how many mgs of metoclopramide we should be getting. And I'm sorry, that top denominator where the x is, it should say milligrams, not milliliters. So we're solving for how many milligrams of metoclopramide we will need. And x equals 16.6 mgs of metoclopramide. So now we want to be able to get that into how many milliliters we should be giving in that 1,000 milliliter bag. So 16.6 mgs times the concentration, which is 1 milliliter, has 5 mgs in it. Your mgs will cancel and will give you 3.3 mils of metoclopramide added to each bag. And that's your answer for part 3. And then finally, for part 4, it says that we want to supplement Hangry's fluids with 40 milliequivalents per liter of potassium chloride, and that is at 2 milliequivalents per milliliter. So how many mils should we add? So basically think of your 40 milliequivalents per liter as essentially your dose, and then the 2 milliequivalents per milliliter as your concentration, and you set it up the same way as all the other problems. So how many mils should you add to the 1 liter? So you have your 1 liter and you multiply by the 40 milliequivalents for every 1 liter. Your liters will cancel and you're left with 40 milliequivalents conveniently, and then you'll take this number and multiply it by the concentration, which is 1 milliliter, or sorry, 2 milliequivalents for 1 milliliter, so milliliters on the top, just like I wrote there. If it's confusing what I'm saying, just watch what I write instead. So you're left with 20 mils added to the 1 liter bag given IV. And then Dr. C was saying that you want to give it IV because if you give it orally, it's just going to be sitting in that stomach of the dog that has food engorgement and it's not going to go down. So you want to be giving it IV. All right, thanks for watching.